This video, we're going to talk about 1.1 Objective 2, where we state the domain and range of a function. Let's look at the graph over here on the left and state the domain and range. So the domain is going to be open on the left-hand side of 1 and is closed on the right-hand side at 4. And we're going to use interval notation like that to express that. And then the range, bottom of the function is open at 4. Top of the function is at 8, and it's closed because there's a point there. Determine the domain and range of the function 5x to the 4th minus 11. So this is a polynomial function that is an even function. So the domain is going to be all real numbers since it's a polynomial. And the smallest that this 5x to the 4th can get is 0. So it's going to go down to negative 11 is going to be the minimum for that function. And there's going to be points that are included, and it's going to open up because it has a positive leading coefficient, and it's going to go to positive infinity. Don't really need to do any calculus to find the minimum. We'll talk about how to do that later in calculus. We just know that this function has to have a minimum at negative 11 because that's the smallest the 5x to the 4th minus 11 can be. If you want to stick that into your calculator to see it, go right ahead. Let's determine an appropriate domain of the function given and identify the independent and dependent variables. So a stone is thrown vertically upward from the ground at a speed of 45 meters per second at time t equals 0. Its distance in d in meters above the ground, neglecting air resistance, is approximated by the function f of t, which would be our d, is equal to 45t minus 5t squared. So because we're dealing with time, and time starts at 0 here, we're going to start at 0. Then we need to figure out when it's going to hit the ground at what time. So we're going to take 45t minus 5t squared and set it equal to 0. And we have a negative 5 gets factored out here, t squared minus 9t. So I'm going to actually pull out a negative 5t. Since t is a common factor, that's going to give me a t minus 9 is equal to 0. We already talked about this part. T equals 0 is one of the zeros. T equals 9 is the other 0. And we can go all the way out to there until it hits the ground. Independent variable here is going to be t. Dependent variable here is going to be d. Cylindrical water tower with a radius of 14 meters and a height of 40 meters is filled to a height of h. The volume V of water in cubic meters is given by the function g of h is equal to 196 pi h. That's r squared is where they got that from. Determine the appropriate domain of the function and identify the independent and dependent variables. So the independent variable is h and the dependent variable is v. And the domain we're going to get is going to be 0 to 40. Since the height of the water tower is 40, we can go between 0 and 40. So D is capital B, D is for domain, 0 to 40, and those are in meters. Let's state the domain and range of this function, and we're going to factor, if we can, So this is going to be x minus 1, x minus 5 over x minus 5. So this equals x minus 1 everywhere other than where x is equal to 5, since it's not allowed to be equal to 5. So our domain is going to be negative infinity to 5, union 5 to infinity. And the range, we're going to look just like this line. So the only y value that's not going to be included is y is not going to be equal to 5 minus 1 is 4. So we're going to have negative infinity to 4, union 4 to infinity. All right, let's state the domain and range of this function. We're going to have to look at a sign chart here. That'll be an important tool here in calculus. So the things that are going to make the inside of the square root here 0 are going to be negative 5 and 5. And we're really only defined in here between those two numbers. Because if I pick a number smaller than negative 5, this is going to make this 0. That's going to make that less than 0, which I can't have a negative inside of a square root and get a real answer if it's bigger than 5. I'm going to have the same problem. So we're going to be between negative 5 and 5. And these will have positive values in here. We would have had negative values for 25 minus x squared out here. Can't have negatives inside my square root sign. So there's my domain, my range. We're going to start on the x-axis here, and we're going to go up. This is going to be the top half of a circle. This is what this graph looks like from negative 5 to 5, and we have a radius of 5. So it's going to go from 0 to 5. Cube roots don't have those problems that square roots have. So the domain here, negative infinity to infinity, we can put any number in there that we want, since we can multiply a negative times a negative times a negative and get a negative number. So the domain for this function here, since it is basically a square root here that's then getting cubed, the domain is going to be negative 10 to 10, just like we had the situation up here, where we can't have a negative inside the square root. Two more questions here show that the graph of g of x equals 4 minus the square root of negative x squared plus 4x plus 21 is the lower half of a circle. Then determine the domain and range of the function. All right, so let's solve this for y. If y equals 4 minus the square root of negative x squared plus 4x plus 21, then y minus 4 equals a negative root negative x squared plus 4x plus 21. Let's square both sides. Y minus 4 squared equals a negative x squared plus 4x plus 21. Let's take the x squared and the negative 4x over here. Half of this middle number squared is going to be 4. So we'll add 4 to both sides. This is x minus 2 squared plus y minus 4 squared is equal to 25, which is 5 squared. So the equation that they want in here is x minus 2 squared plus y minus 4 squared is equal to 5 squared. And because y is less than or equal to 4 in the original equation there, the function is the lower half of the circle, and I'm not sure which of those says. It's multiple blanks that say positive 4, but it's positive 4. So this is less than or equal to positive 4, lower half, circle of radius 5, centered at the point 2, 4, and the domain is going to be 2 minus 5 is going to be -3. 2 plus 5 is going to be 7. 4 minus 5 is going to be -1. And 4 plus 5 is, now we're just the lower half, so we're going to just go up to 4 here, because we're the lower half of this circle. That is, let's see, -3 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, centered at 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down here, and that radius right there is going to be swept to come up here and up here. Should be on this arc here, like so. Not that great at drawing the circle without a compass, but you get the idea that we have the point here, -3, 4, and we have the point here, 7, 4, and that's our function. That's the bottom half of that circle there. All right, let's go ahead and state the domain and range of this function. H of z is equal to the square root of z squared minus 4z minus 12. So square root of z minus 6, z plus 2. So we have a 0 at -2. We have a 0 at +6. This is what I was thinking that I needed to do before. So if I stick in a number less than -2, I'm going to have a negative times a negative as a positive, and this is in the domain. Also 0 is in the range, so -2 is in the domain. If I stick in a number between -2 and 6, like 0, I get a negative times a positive as a negative, and the function does not exist here because we can't have a negative inside of the square root sign. Bigger than 6, we get a positive times a positive as a positive, so that's good. And so our domain is going to go from -infinity to -2 included, union 6 included, to +infinity. This square root, the smallest that it's allowed to be, is 0, and it opens up, so it can go up to +infinity. So that's it for this video. We'll come back next time and keep talking about 1.1, and we'll look at objective 3. See you for the next video.